Happy New Year and welcome to Edu Steps, where we help you move from potential to purpose, one intentional step at a time. Today we're challenging a message you hear everywhere, that college itself is the finish line. It's not. Freedom is. We'll discuss using our own LYS Be-Know-Do system. Before we do that, let me introduce the squad. Happy New Year to Festus. How you doing today? Happy New Year, brother.
Man, I'm doing excellent. It's great to be here. Thanks so much for launching us out this year.
Awesome, definitely, man. And of course, we have the doctor in the house, Dr. Jamar Crawford. How you doing today, brother? Happy New Year.
Hey, it was good. Happy New Year to you too, especially Father Time over there.
All righty. Speaking of Father Time, we got the one and only Daniel Hill. Daniel, how you doing today? Happy New Year, brother.
I'm doing good, man. It's getting older and older. Same as Crawford getting older and older. Crawford about to hit that 40 soon, man. 40.
All right, folks. As we always go over in our podcast, we discuss our topics based off of our own Be-Know-Do framework, which is being, what are your values, principles, characteristics, your knowing, where are my resources and how do I get access to them, and doing, how do I take who I am and what I know and turn that into something that allows me to execute, but not just execute with excellence. So let's start off with talking about the be. Being is about identity. Before choosing a path, you must understand who you are becoming. Before choosing a college or career path, students must define what freedom actually means for their life, not what they've been told success should look like. And that's actually really powerful. I remember it's in the first chapter of the LYS book where Festus describes defining success. What does that look like? And for a lot of us, it may be college, but I think when you look even deeper, right, you got to remember that college, for most of us, if this is your entire life, college is this. It's a 4 to 7 year period of your life, right? So you got to think about the full scope of your life and what do you intend to do there, right? And so for the squad, I have a question for y'all. Why is defining freedom more important than choosing a college when students are making post-high school decisions?
I think the most important thing is, what does freedom mean to you, right? In terms of the life you want to live, the opportunities you want to take advantage of, and also what you're willing to accept from out of life. I think that's one of the things that maybe has a lot of people frustrated, is they feel like they're settling and they have more potential than they're realizing, or they know internally that there's more out of life and they're not necessarily getting it at that time. So to me, those are the things I would share.
Definitely defining freedom for themselves is definitely important, because depending on what that freedom looks like and sound like and feels like for them can help set the plan in motion for what they should do academically for their future. Because based on those freedoms that they are saying that they want to have and experience in life, then we could set a foundation for those things to become an actual reality.
Yeah, I like what Crawford said. You have to figure out what freedom means to them first, because it helps you understand like what you can actually do. If your plan is to travel the world and make millions, then you might not want to choose that career that you picking that's only gonna make you like $400 a month, or gonna have you struggling for the next 10 years till you get it. And freedom might be something simple as just like having extra time on the weekend and do stuff. So yeah, you first got to do that before deciding your college.
Definitely. Most people are they'll make a decision, they're going to go here and do X, Y, and Z, go to X, Y, and Z college, and they really don't know what degree they're going to do. And so it's so true. You have to figure out who you are. What are your values? What are your principles? What are your characteristics before you make that decision? What am I going to do after I leave college? My next question for the squad is, how does equating success with college limit students' ability to pursue freedom in different forms? How does equating success with college limit students' ability to pursue freedom in different forms?
So I think that, just like how we said students need to define freedom for themselves. Same thing. What does success look like? However that looks, how can you touch it? How does it smell? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What is it that you want to experience so that you can know internally that you feel successful? When we equate success to college, then we're definitely limiting our options because there's many other options out there depending on what that particular person define as success. Because you can go to college, you can go to a trade school and so many other things out there to where they have programs we can get certificates and you can become an entrepreneur. So there's so many different options out there. So the first thing you would need to do to find what freedom is that is related to success. What is that freedom and what does that success look like? And based on those answers, we can now look at the different options that are available to, again, make those possibilities reality.
Yeah, I think Crawford summed it up. When you just base everything off of college being successful, then you cross out the people who making thousands and thousands of dollars doing floors, construction workers, people who, like he said, do a trade school. That's them people making $100 an hour aren't successful, aren't doing well, but they're making six and seven figures a year. So you can't limit it to school. Crawford had a great point.
Yeah, definitely. I think to that point, I think when you make college the end all be all, you definitely limit yourself from what freedom really is. It's like I had mentioned before, this is just a short period of your life. And what the stats say is, I believe it's somewhere between 52 and 57%, if I'm not mistaken. We'll go ahead and say around 50% just to be safe. 50% of the people who have a degree, their current career is not associated with their degree plan. And so that's huge. You've got folks who are just jumping into college, taking on debt, taking on parents' finances, resources, and they're getting a degree, and then they're working in fields that have nothing to do with what they got their degree in. So that tells me a couple things. It tells me that they probably went to school a little early. It tells me that they really weren't aware of who they were, what their purpose was, what their calling was, what their vocation was before they went to school. It also tells me that sometimes this could be a path that you're being pushed to instead of a path that you genuinely found for yourself. And I think when you do that, things like this happen. Things like that happen. I'm a prime example. I went to school for finance. I haven't used that degree for finance in I don't know how many years. I'm sure if I would have gave myself a little bit more time, if I would have talked to the right people, I would have put myself in a position to where I made a better decision. And that's what we're here about. We're here to help those so they don't make the same mistakes that we made. All right, so let's go into knowing, right? We talked about being, we talked about your values, principles, and characteristics. Let's talk about knowing. Knowing means understanding the trade-offs that affect freedom, right? This is how money, debt, time, and career flexibility shape life after high school. So my question for the squad in regards to knowing is, what systems unintentionally push students into paths that reduce flexibility and long-term freedom?
I would say focusing on going to college just because that systematically equates to success. And I think the focus should shift from going to college to getting an education. What education is important for me to have to acquire whatever I want to do to gain that type of success or freedom? So there's, like we spoke earlier in this podcast, there's so many different avenues to educate yourself so that you can learn the skills and knowledge required for you to do whatever you would like to do to equate success or that freedom. So again, shift our mindset from just going to college to getting that education and making sure that education is meaningful specifically for you to do what it is that you would like to do to get to that success or freedom.
Yeah, I agree with Crawford. I'd say just school period. Like it's like when back in the day, it seemed like they had the thing where they would encourage some people to go to different, or they have you learn a trade. Like back in the day before our times, probably. But now it just seemed like it was a push for school, and now schools got so expensive. Actually, people are choosing to go to these expensive schools. Let's be honest. Like you don't have to go to school that costs you $6,000 a year. You can go to one that costs you 10,000. But people are pushing them to go to these schools, and now they're in debt for careers they'll never be able to pay off.
No, I totally agree. I don't know if it's a system, but I do think to Dr. Crawford's point and Hill's point, it's ignorance. I think ignorance is the system that unintentionally pushes students into paths that reduce flexibility and long-term freedom. I don't want to say immaturity, but you're young. You don't know any better, right? So if you don't have that connection with your parents, if you don't have these conversations with your parents, if you're not going out and you're talking to your teachers, you're talking to people at the grad center, you're talking to those counselors, you're talking to people who work in a particular field that you might be interested in, right? This is the maturity process, right? We know we should ask these questions, but we don't. And I think it's a struggle, especially with this gen that we have now, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, because of technology, because of COVID. They're not as quick to be interpersonal and ask those questions and have those conversations. But you have to learn how to do that. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. Just ask, it could be at your church, in your community, a neighbor. Ask that person, hey, I know you do this. How'd you get into that? How'd you pay for it? Did you get a scholarship? Did you go to this school or that school? I think our young people would be so surprised when you ask those questions, the type of insight that you'll get from those people. So I think ignorance is one of those major things that our young people got to focus in on. All right, so let's jump into do. We talked about being, we talked about knowing, now we're talking about doing. We're talking about how to take who we are, what we know, and turn that into a plan that we can execute, but not just execute with excellence, right?
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole once again. You know, these days, many families are busy, but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
So we're defining what freedom looks like financially, relationally, and vocationally 5 years out. Talk with one trusted adult about multiple paths to that freedom. And I want you to identify one path you're exploring by choice, not by pressure. So the question I want to ask the squad is, how can a student tell the difference between a path they're choosing out of pressure versus one they're choosing because it actually moves them towards freedom?
It's a decision made out of pressure when the decision is made based on circumstances. What I mean by that is if there's a sort of specific circumstances that they're trying to fit into, maybe it could be I want to do this to make my parents happy, or there's pressure on me to do this because there's a expectation for me to go into this field, or there's an expectation that I may have put on myself to make X amount of dollars, right? Those are making decisions out of pressure, right? Or I want to fit in with the social norm of my peers. And if all of my peers are doctors, I have to go to school to be a doctor. Those are decisions that are made out of pressure versus thinking about me, what does success look like to me? What does that freedom look like to me? What are those things? And then I map out my options based on that definition of freedom and success. Now we're moving away from outside influence of pressure of our parents and peers and so on and so forth. And now we're making decisions that are closely connected to us. And if we do that, that will define our purpose, and the students will be more likely to reach those particular goals in that field.
Yeah, I say the same thing Crawford said, because really, if the person said, "Why are you doing it?" Oh, because my parents do it. Because my parents want me to do it. They've already pushed that. It's like there's no actual love to actually do what you want to do. It's just, they actually want me to do it, so I'm doing it. So that's what I say, same as Crawford.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing I thought about when I read the question was, if you're a student in high school, early college, you're about to make that decision, just ask yourself, how do I feel? If this degree or this area that you're about to go into, if it doesn't get you excited, if you're not thinking about, man, once I get out, I can do this and I can do that and I can work in this place. If it doesn't get you excited, you're, and forgive me if it sounds mean, you're probably being forced or you're being led to. And I want to make this comment for people, because I know it happens in a lot of cases where you may have a family member or a parent, whoever, that says, I won't pay for this unless you do this plan. I'm not paying for you to do liberal arts, right? I'm not paying for you to go do art. What I'll say to those students is this: you do have to have a certain level of practicality here, right? And I'm just going to use this as an example. Let's say you're a student and you're super sharp in science and math, right? You're super sharp in science and math, but you'd like to go into art. That's something that you're very passionate about. You can get a lot of the experience and a lot of the knowledge necessary to work in the art field, right? To do artwork without going to college, or going to a community college, or taking an online course or something of that nature, as opposed to going and getting a degree in engineering where you can actually live somewhat comfortably. And this is why we always talk about, take a look at the BLS, take a look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and degree plans and how you intend to live. We talked earlier about having your goals 5 years out, because if you take a look at those things, those are some of the issues that folks have when they do that. And so I think that's one of those things that people have to really pay attention to when they make those decisions. Okay.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
You saying that made me think of something, because I looked at this special program that HCC is partnering with U of H, to where you can get a bachelor's degree at a low cost price. I saw that. I said, oh, they giving our bachelor's at a discounted price. Let me look and see what extra education I could get. But guess what those programs are in? Liberal arts. I looked at those majors, I said, oh, I can't do nothing with none of this stuff. So just thinking about that when we looking at, hey, what is freedom? What is their success? If we change from just going to college to getting an actual education and based on their freedom and success, we could see, like me looking at that, okay, yes, it's a cheaper bachelor degree, but when I look at it, these majors, I can't do nothing. It doesn't align with me. Like, it was all liberal arts. I'm like, man, I can't do nothing with none of this. But that just made me think of that, because it was advertised. As soon as I saw it, I said, oh, that's a deal. Let me get this education at a cheap price. I saw them majors. I say, nah, I'm gonna throw that. I don't want to make that comment.
Hey, but both of y'all preaching is for real, because these people, I like, why you go spend $60,000 to get a liberal arts degree? That's not going to get you that's not even get you a $6,000 a year job. Like, you go, like you said, and it's going to be, I don't know if y'all seen it lately, the painting, the art, bro. Have y'all seen that they even got new AI sculpting art, bro? The scoping AI, they have a machine that whatever you think in your head, it will scope it out for you with like clay. Bro, it was one of the amazing. It looked like something from like the 14th century, bro. Like the 1400s, bro. Like something, yeah, all that. It was amazing, bro. And so that stuff, like the arts and all that stuff, and that stuff is going out the door. But if you get something like a AC degree or HVAC, bro, you will always have a job.
Definitely. Man, really good conversation. I really love that. I hope the students out there enjoyed that too. So remember, folks, Edu Steps exists to help you think clearly, choose wisely, and prepare realistically for life after high school. If today's episode helped you rethink what success really means, share it with a friend who feels pressure to follow a path that may not necessarily fit them. And subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Next week, we're breaking down why GPA alone won't save you and what actually will. For Daniel Hill, for Dr. Jamar Crawford, I'm Ole Shalunky. I'm going to give the outro that Festus normally would. He had to step out. He had an emergency. So I'm going to say there are legitimate reasons to not going to college. There are no legitimate reasons to not getting an education. Thank you for watching this, or hearing this latest episode of Edu Steps, powered by Laddering Your Success. Y'all be safe. Y'all be good.